Information, education, motivation. Real life, real topics. Welcome back to Cayman Conversations, now streaming on Cayman Times Facebook and YouTube channels and also live on Bobo FM 89.1. Today we have a special guest. She returns to Cayman Conversations to talk about her new talk show. Patricia Bryan will join us soon to talk about the launch of her new talk show. Is going to happen on Monday on Boba FM. In the meantime, we'll hear some music from Kim and Kind while we get ready for Miss Bryan.
Red light.
Yeah,
Na, 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 na.
the sun is up, the sun is up. The sun is up and it's smiling. Another clear blue perfect day.
Paradise.
A warm breeze from the ocean.
Breeze blows your troubles away.
East to west bay. Oh yeah.
A walk on the white sandy beaches.
A call from the turquoise sea. You know you're right where you're meant to be. If you find yourself believing, if you find yourself still dreaming, if you find yourself in love with life, you found yourself in Cayman Kind. We're in Cayman Kind. Are you Cayman Kind? Living in Cayman Kind. If you find yourself believing, Cayman Kind. If you find yourself still dreaming, Cayman Kind. The sun is up, and it's smiling. The sun is up,
Cayman time.
blows your troubles away. If you find yourself believing, Cayman Kind. I wanna walk with you
Paradise.
on the white sandy beaches.
Oh the sun is up and it's smiling. Another clear blue perfect day. Paradise.
Yeah, yeah.
La 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 la. Welcome to Cayman Kind. Beautiful sounds of Cayman's best talent singing Cayman Kind. I want to say good afternoon. Welcome back to Cayman Conversations. Patricia, how are you doing today?
Hi, Ralph. I'm doing good. Good afternoon to yourself and to the radio listeners.
Okay. I'm excited to hear the great news. Understand that we're going to be sharing the radio waves together. There's a new show coming up next week on Bobo FM. Oh man,
Yes,
tell me about it, Patricia. What's happening on your end of the woods?
Ralph, you're making me blush. Well, I had this new concept that has been on my mind for quite a long time, and I finally decided to bring it to fruition where I'm starting a new talk show. It's a different type of talk show. It's called Legal Talk with Patricia Bryan,
Okay.
and it is a platform where we will be discussing anything legal oriented, starting from how do you get into the legal field, how do you get into studying for the legal field. It will cover various aspects of different areas of the law, and I intend to have guests that will cover from attorneys of all different types of legal fields, hopefully government agencies that I feel are relevant to legal services for the public, and any type of legal topic that the public or our listeners want to discuss. I intend to have this as a platform to do so, and it will. I won't share who will be my first guest. I would love to leave that as a surprise, but
Okay, great.
it is starting from the bottom. It also will involve a bit of the political feel in term. It won't be a gossip show, that will be for sure. I just want to get that out there. Um, it will be a talk show, where my guests will get on and share their legal experiences and knowledge,
Okay,
give listeners an opportunity to know who is who in the Cayman Islands that
yes,
offer particular legal services.
okay,
And it will also give our MPs, I'm hoping, will take advantage of the platform where they can come on and speak about any type of programs or whatever that they're offering in their constituents or districts, respectively, for their constituents. And also, if they're planning to anything of that is of importance to our community in terms
yes,
of how they're planning to to articulate any type of legislation on behalf of the Cayman Islands or their respective districts.
okay.
Uh, I'd like to get the governor on so she
Wow.
can speak about herself. And of
Okay,
course, that is
okay,
the legal field too, involving our governor. I'd like to have the premier on. I'm looking forward to inviting him. And
okay.
uh, primary areas of the legal field that I think are vital to the
Yes,
Cayman Islands. And I want from uh, finance law to
everything.
real property, employment, criminal, civil. There's different aspects of civil law that I'd like to have guests on to discuss from various law firms or sole proprietor
Okay.
firms, because we have different levels of firms here in the Cayman Islands.
Mhm.
And legal aid, I'd like to discuss legal aid. I'd hope to have the legal aid department on as guests. So different areas of the legal system that I think are vital to the community and would be vital to our listeners, and also to expose the legal field in the Cayman Islands, expose that there are different areas of our lives that cover the legal area that we may not be aware of, you know?
Okay.
So that is the idea of the concept and the platform that I came up with. I did, you
The
had a
name
question.
of the show. The name of the show is what?
Legal Talk with Patricia
Legal
Bryant.
Talk, which
Yeah.
is hosted by you, and you'll be having guests from not only the legal fields but also in government and community to actually
Right.
have discussions on those topics.
And
What made you?
yes.
What made you decide to do something like this?
Well, like I said, it's basically returning home from school, and while I did a lot of uh, legal work before I went off to school, and
Okay.
advocating for certain types of social issues like child support. I was
Yes.
instrumental in having the distinction between legitimate and illegitimate children changed in the Cayman Islands pertaining to child support. Landlord and tenant law is a big thing for me. So I was
Yes.
instrumental in those issues before I went away from school to school. And while I was away and since I've been back, members of the public have messaged me, have communicated to me, reached out to me in different areas. And in addition to that, when I look around at our society and I see that there's certain information and knowledge lacking in the
Yes.
Cayman Islands, the legal system itself is advancing in Cayman. We have a new CJ, and the judicial has started streamlining online. The legislation has started streamlining online, where our laws are now located online. And what is not growing though is the awareness of the public on the different types of laws and legal issues to the average client person out in the society, and not not being able to access those laws. We see human rights have become a major issue, human and civil rights in the Cayman Islands. I want to have professionals and people of expertise come on to the show and talk about those issues so our community can better understand those issues. I want to, I saw where there was in terms of the real estate market right now, there's a lot of people that are getting themselves caught up in rifts where it concerns property, you know, different areas of real estate. And I think that that's a
Yes.
market where I've seen where, unfortunately, regrettably, I wish I didn't have to say this. I've seen where there's been quite a few members of our community have passed, and I've seen where their respective families or loved ones, they may not have had a will, they may not have, uh, you know, designated any type of
Yes.
legal designation to their loved ones, and you know that's become an issue where loved ones are not aware of how to do a will or
I know.
how to do with real estate and that sort of thing. So it's a
Yes.
very bunch of
Estate
different.
planning.
Yeah,
And you're correct. There's a lot of information that the layperson, the simple, homeowners or people just go about their way of life, and they're not aware that there are laws that govern many things. Even in strata, there's strata laws. If you don't pay your strata, that they can take your house and they can
right,
sell it, or they can make arrangements to get some funds from that. And you have to move out. So there are a lot of stuff that people don't realize that govern our daily lives, and it's good to have a source. Every Is it going to be every Monday? What time is it going to be? That's when you have the.
every Monday at 5 to 6:30 p.m. on Bobo 89.1 FM.
Okay, great.
We will be
Yes. Okay.
discussing legal issues, you know,
Yes.
finance, investment, stocks, bonds, anything legal oriented that we can have a professional expertise come on and
Yes.
explain that, explain how you know the legal system works, how it can affect you from not only the government side, but also from the private sector.
Yes.
You know, there's certain areas of the law that no one hears about here, and you know they're the legal professionals that stay inside the office and never get out, never go to court, never get
Yes.
involved in certain things that you
Uh,
know. I think we need to bring that to the forefront too. I'm
yes.
very
To that.
interested in expungement for our community. Uh, that's another thing for me. But
Another thing.
anyone that wants to get on the show, they can freely reach out to
Okay.
me to be a guest and talk about any legal issues that they want to discuss. I am not a lawyer. I make that disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer in the Cayman Islands, and I
Yes.
don't practice law. I do know certain pro se information, but I
Yes.
intend to strictly stick to having professionals and knowledge individuals on the show.
Well, well, that's the sort of types of talk shows that are happening. We don't know everything, and we don't expect to know everything. But if we can have guests on who know specific details in their fields, we can just be the host that asks questions on behalf of the listeners and get to answer them. And that's what we have. So my question to you, you actually answered one. You're gonna experts can actually contact you to come on the show. What can the public contact you with questions in this areas?
Well, my email address is legal talk with Patricia. That is
Okay.
LEGAL
Mhm.
PALK
Okay.
WITH
Good.
PATRICIA. I haven't had my lunch yet.
That's all
At
right. That's all right.
outlook.com. And then
Okay.
I've just gotten a new number
Okay.
is,
But,
oh my goodness.
but I'm
Uh,
sure you'll have it on Facebook
25.
and YouTube as well.
I am still in the process of trying to get my social
Okay.
media
Okay. Great.
channel up. It's a new frontier for me, so
All right.
those will be up and running by next week.
Okay. But definitely you'll be on Bobo
Channel. I
next
do
Monday at 5:30 or 6 at what
5
time?
to 30 p.m. on Bobo
5:30 p.m.
89.9,
Okay.
oh,
Right.
89.1 FM.
And
That's
Bobo,
CMS station.
yeah, Bobo is actually growing. I was visiting one of the managers this morning, and we are talking about the future of Cayman Conversations, and we were sort of going through the procedures of what the plans were for our show, and apparently they're getting a lot more momentum. So it will take time for new shows to catch on, but that's what comes with practice and with patience and persistence. Because once you have a good idea, like you have, to get legal information to the listeners for free, that is something that will always move forward. And people will share the news about, hey, Monday evening, let me hear what Patrick is talking about or what her guests are talking about, because they might learn something. There are many divorces happening in the Cayman Islands or separations, and people may want to know not only about child support, how can they deal with their divorce situation, either
Right.
from the person that submits it or some who's receiving that divorce. So just divorce alone will have a lot of people listening for that. And then the other areas, like I said, estate planning, wills, as I mentioned, that a lot of people are asking about how do I do a will? And not many
Right,
people have wills. So
exactly.
I would think,
How can I protect my assets? How can I protect
yes,
my real estate? There's another big one that I see is very common in Cayman now. After the pandemic, we had a lot of residents forming small companies and entrepreneur companies, and not realizing that while they are practicing a sole proprietorship, that could be a liability, and they don't have
yes,
that legal knowledge. So I'd like to welcome attorneys on also, or even the business and trade and business license department. I know it has a new name now, on to
yes,
talk about those things to educate our young entrepreneurs, or any entrepreneur in the Cayman Islands,
yes,
of the legalities of the different types of company formations and incorporation and that sort of thing, because I see that happening from the level up down to the ground, you know.
that's correct.
So just any type of legal issue, and the law
Excellent.
covers every aspect of
All right.
our life on a daily basis. So
All
that's
right.
that's the gist of the show, Ralph.
Okay, well, just give us some contact details again where we can reach you by a phone number, or just give us a time and place again. Just remind our listeners where they can contact you, where they can tune in, and
Okay, so
how to reach you for anything.
I don't have my new number memorized. I should be ashamed of myself, but I'll give
Don't.
you my personal number, 9390796,
Okay.
and the email address is Patricia, I'm sorry, Legal Talk with Patricia at outlook.com. The show
Okay.
is on Global 89.1 FM on Monday evenings at 5 to 6:30 p.m. Legal Talk with Patricia Bryan.
Well, I
And
want
guest
to.
you can reach out to be a guest. The show is looking for sponsors also, or if you're a nonprofit organization and you may want to have me mention your nonprofit organization on the show, that is something that I want to implement, because I think nonprofits do a huge service to the community and should get more recognition. So if
Okay.
anyone is listening and they know of a nonprofit, they can let them know. Send me a communication so I can just mention that nonprofit.
Okay. Well, I want to wish you all the best with your new show. I will encourage you that it takes a little while to get going, but don't stop, because that's the thing with media. Um, and I've been in it 10 years. I remember the days when I started. You have to continue. Once you have a good idea, and I know you have a good idea, and there's a demand, just stick with it, and I'm sure you will succeed.
I
I
thank you
wish you
very
all the
much.
best. I'll be tuning in on Monday.
I
So
know you
hear
will do
your
the same,
first
and I want to be
conversation,
here.
all right?
So I
And I'll
appreciate
give
you.
you some feedback too, if you don't mind. And if you want to invite me on, I don't have a law degree, but I'll be happy to come and have a discussion at some point about legal matters, maybe in my experiences, and we can have a conversation on that too, on your
Absolutely,
show.
I agree with that. I agree with that, because I'm sure you have some invaluable information, Ralph.
Uh,
Thank you so
and
much for
anything on
having me.
finances, you never
Yes,
know. All right. Well, thank
we
you
will.
very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your lunch, okay? And
Thank you.
take
I
care. Watch
appreciate
out for
it.
the weather
Thank
this
you.
weekend. Okay,
Okay.
bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming. Okay. Yes, we were happy to invite Patricia today to talk about her new show. And by the way, Bobo is growing, and we're here to make it become top talk show station in the future. That's what it's all about. We're going to take the next couple of minutes to just replay one of our recordings we had with hazard management and Onisha Richards and John Tibbetts and Daniel Coleman. And we had a discussion about preparing for the hurricane season. By the folks, by now, you know that there's a storm coming through the Caribbean Sea over the weekend. We should get some rain. And we're getting geared up for another active hurricane season. So enjoy the next 45 minutes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to
Afternoon.
Cayman Conversations. How are you doing today?
Good.
Really good, thank you. How you doing, Ralph?
I'm doing great. I think we're just waiting for Mr. John. I'm sure he'll be here in a few minutes. Are you enjoying the weather?
Nice and moody day.
We love it. We love it. It's so as long as you have your rain mac and your umbrella, you're fine. But it's
It's
yeah,
true.
it's nice, moody, very moody day.
Great. Okay. Well, Daniel, can you tell us what you do at Hazard Management?
Okay, so hazard management for well, hello for all the listeners today. So hazard management, we're responsible for coordination of any national emergency. So obviously hurricane season is our biggest threat in the Cayman Islands. However, we also work with things from migration to oil spills to fire to earthquakes, tsunamis, anything that could become an emergency of a big proportion. Obviously, a lot of the agencies will focus, if it's a road traffic accident, for example, it may only be the police service or it may be the fire. But a lot of the times, because of our resources on the island, it'll become multi-agency, and that's where we get involved because we do a lot of coordination of that.
Yes. And I remember having many meetings during the pandemic.
Pandemic meeting, and pandemic,
Yes. Yes. Okay. Onisha, can you just give us an idea of what you do?
Sure. So I have the pleasure of being responsible for communications for the government. We sit in the cabinet office. So we're a Department of Communications. A lot of people are familiar with GIS. In 2021, the government made a decision to coordinate all communications. So we have the Strategic Communications Unit, what was known as GIS, and then internal communications all sit in what is now Department of Communications. So I have the pleasure of heading up that team and function. I think particularly for your listeners today is our function when it comes to crises. So what we're responsible for, of course, in those times is to ensure individuals are aware of what's happening, giving them safety information that can keep themselves and their families safe, and ensuring that's done on an ongoing and timely basis. So we head up the Joint Communication Services for the government, and that is an activated agency once there is a crisis declared. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we do. It's really hard to kind of put it into a couple of words because depending on the
It's
hazard,
a very important job.
yeah, depending on the
Yes.
hazard, is how we act. But we have a really strong team. And I should note that Joint Communication Services is not just the Department of Comms. Once we activate in that function, all communicators across the public sector become a part of the structure to help us make sure all those messages are going out accurately and timely.
Okay, that's good.
I think just to add to
And,
that,
yeah.
I mean, Anisha does it again. It's a tremendous communication is such an important aspect when it comes to any kind of large scale emergency. So sometimes obviously hazard management morphs into what we call the National Emergency Operations Center, and we coordinate that. But that's again multi-agency. But sometimes we'll be fully activated with all the 19 emergency support teams.
Yeah.
A lot of the times it'll be much smaller. It'll be ourselves and a few other agencies, a few teams under the National Emergency Operations Center. Communications is always going to be one of those because communications in any emergency is absolutely critical. If the gap's not being filled by government and the official sources, obviously there's a big reach for people to fill the gap. And I think communications is absolutely critical in any emergency. Consistent messaging across the entire government and again shared with the wider public.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks.
And we could spend a little more time on communication while John gets ready to talk about the actual weather itself and the preparation for the hurricane season and what we should do. But one of the reasons that I'm here in media It's because I'm really concerned about the level and the function of media in getting the message out. Because
Hmm.
I understand, and I'm sure you agree, that it is important to get the right information
Yes.
all the time to the right people. And so,
Mm.
Alicia, just speak to that, please, how important it is that the information is accurately given and at the right time.
That is critical because having the right information at the right time, we know saves lives, right? So it's incredibly important. And it's incredibly important that people in the media, like yourselves, are able to support us in ensuring that things are accurate. I think a lot of the struggle that the public has, and it's normal for any public, is that they want things, immediately or almost before it was thought of in some cases. But we're very, very focused on ensuring that it's accurate because accurate information is what's going to be important. So I think, when we talk about communications, particularly as they go with crises, we're trying to be as timely as possible. And we're definitely going to be accurate. That's our goal. One of the things that we know has been more beneficial for us, and we've changed over the past kind of 2 years, is to also have a frequency. Danny kind of mentioned that rhythm. And I think that the community can rely on the fact that we let them know that every 6 hours we're going to say something, even if there's nothing to say, just so they also get used to the rhythm of when will you get information, at least on an ongoing basis. We work
Yes.
closely with Radio Cayman as well to make sure that avenue, we're putting out the same type of message. So there's consistency as well. The last thing we want for the community is that they're hearing different things in different places. So one of the strong points that we have from a JCS perspective is to ensure that all government is sending out the same information, and we're trusting our media partners to be in that with us, so that we're sending out the same accurate information together.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to welcome Mr. John Tibbetts. John, welcome back. Uh, we were just asking our guests to just give a little description of the role and your responsibilities. Can you help us here?
Well, as head of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, I am the lead voice, as it were, for the Meteorological Authority for the Cayman Islands. So a big part of my role is involved in monitoring the Atlantic Ocean and especially the Caribbean Sea force systems that may present some inclement weather that may be dangerous to the general public. And we not only pass that information on to the media sources, but we also pass those on to HMCI and the communication team on some of the larger level systems, certainly. We wouldn't necessarily pass on, like, let's say you got a cold front come in, unless the cold front is a major one that is going to produce waves that are going to compromise the road traffic or the coastal road on Saginaw Beach. And part of that job also involves looking at the making sure that we get the impacts down correct and that we pass that information on as well.
Okay, thank you, John. We were just talking about communication and how important it is, and as just while we're waiting, and Amisha gave her a little contribution. Can you just let us know how you feel about communication and the importance to get the right information at the right time?
Um, well, communication is absolutely critical. And I think when you're looking at the government agencies now, the government agencies are now having a communications officer as part of the team. Okay, so when you're composing the ministry, you must have a communications officer so that the messages that are coming out from the ministry, coming out from the departments in that ministry, are all vetted and presented in the correct manner. Now, year in and year out, we continue to fight with um, other media, other meteorological experts that post things on YouTube and Facebook and what have you, and they have a tendency to excite the public
Yeah.
when there really isn't no need for excitement. Their forecasters have a tendency to forecast whatever the weather model says, they take it as gospel. And yet, in my experience, and if you ask any of the weather forecasters inside there, they will tell you that the weather models are often wrong. There are numerous times when they have forecasted massive hurricanes, massive rain events to come across the Cayman Islands, and nothing happens. Not only does nothing happen, but nothing even starts up. You know, from the Weather Service's point of view, as the director of the Weather Service, the weather model can tell me there's a strong low coming through, but I got to see that low form first, okay? Because I know the errors in the models, okay? And it isn't going to make good sense for us to be constantly crying wolf when there's no wolf, okay? And these are the meteorologists who are posting things on YouTube. Please understand something. They really have no accountability when you sit down and think about it, because no matter how many times they're wrong, the Cayman general public are not going to go and says they're wrong. They'll say they're wrong when the National Weather Service says they're wrong, because it is my job for the Cayman Islands people. It's my job for the Cayman Islands government. That is my role. All right. They are doing this on a private venture on the side, and there are no penalties for them being wrong.
Okay.
Okay. There are potential penalties for us in terms of our public not necessarily listening to us.
Yeah.
All right. And not reacting to warnings when we issue them. So that's the situation that we're in.
Okay. Danny, can you give us your input on this, please?
I think John's got a great point. And at the end of the day, we can't be crying wolf all the time. We have to have a reasonable expectation that we're going to get impacted. But of course, with climate change and other things, you know, things change very, very quickly. It's a very, very dynamic playing field. When we're talking about storms in particular here, it's a very dynamic playing field. So that information getting out in a timely manner, verified, and again, we are following it and consistently updating it, is absolutely critical. I think John and I do both have the same pet peeve when it comes to these models that come and stress everyone out and actually have no factual basis. Because at the end of the day, you know, I think everyone's got enough stress in their lives these days. We certainly don't want to add to that. And I think one of the biggest things is to constantly put that stress out there. And of course, when you do have the big storms that, you know, are actually happening, you know, you become so exhausted from the whole thing. You're not actually going to respond as you should do. So we are very, very careful when we do any kind of, you know, activation of sorts through the forecasting and again through the National Emergency Operations Centre, to know that there really is a risk. I say that, but I also say, you know, we have over the last few years erred on the side of caution. So whereas sometimes in the past we may not have activated because it's a tropical storm, or we may not have activated because, you know, it wasn't anything significant threat. We've actually changed that a bit over the last few years, and I think maybe COVID's made us a bit more sensitive to things, but also Tropical Storm Grace. I mean, again, that was much more impact than I think a lot of people expected, including ourselves, I think. So I think we've always, as the NEAC, the National Emergency Operations Centre, we tend to plan ahead, make sure we're ready to go and activate. But again, if things calm down during the night or things change dramatically, we will deactivate very quickly. We'd rather go full out and then pare back. And at the very least, it's a great exercise, training exercise for all of us working together, getting the best possible scenario. I mean, for COVID is a great example. I mean, obviously it was a pandemic as opposed to a storm, but we were activated for 104 days. So we've changed a lot over the last couple of years as to how we work together and how we are streamlined and how we're making sure we're getting the best out of our multi-agency response. We've done a lot more training even this year with all our key players in the National Emergency Operations Centre. So I think there's that I wouldn't ever call anything's over preparing. I think it's being ready, being very ready to go no matter what the emergency is. But again, paring back and being constantly reassessing that situation. And I think that, again, for the public, we strongly encourage the public to do the same thing. If there is a storm coming, for example, and it looks only to be a tropical storm, well, just be aware that that can change very dramatically, very, very quickly. And I think, again, with climate change, we're seeing this rapid intensification much more so than we have done in the past.
Okay, thank you. I mean, we're going to get back into those details in a bit, but let's talk about the weather. We are now into June, in that time of year when we all prepare for the worst.
No,
and
well,
hope for the
let me
best.
correct you for that. We prepared that the whole year.
Yes.
Not just June.
Always prepared.
Always prepared, right? Well, Mr. John, we're going to call you back on the front stage again, just to let us know what are we expecting, or what are the plans for this year, or what are the forecasts for this year.
Okay, so when the experts are out there looking to produce a prediction for the season, they start to look at the various atmospheric factors that determine hurricanes and the level of the hurricanes for the season. So first on the agenda is usually the El Nino La Nina cycle. Okay. So all of the predictions up until this point have said, hey, listen, we're forecasting that an El Nino will will develop this year. Okay. This morning I got a message from NOAA. NOAA is now officially advising us that that is no longer a forecast. That is now a fact. The El Nino is here. Okay. Now, what is El Nino and what does it do? All right. The El Nino is basically a warming of the eastern Pacific Ocean. Okay. And the impact that it has on the Atlantic basin is generally, it has a tendency to cap the development of the hurricane season. Okay. It usually produces wind shear. Okay. And the wind shear has a tendency to tear apart thunderstorms, which are the lifeblood of hurricanes. Okay. So congratulations. I gave you the good news part of this. There's a little bit of bad news on it. And that is there's a competing situation, and that is that the sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean are above normal. Okay, so we got one thing fighting against an active season, and something else fighting for an active season. All right, and we're going to kind of have to see how this plays out. In the sense that we're going to need to see where exactly and how extensive the wind shear patterns are with regards to the El Nino pattern. And we're going to see how that impacts the various systems as they try to form up. In terms of the prediction, we look at two different sources. We look at Colorado State, and we look at NOAA. Okay, NOAA says we're going to have an average season. Colorado State says we're going to have an average season. Now, I will tell you that the April forecast that came out from Colorado actually had the named storms, the hurricanes, and the major hurricanes all below the average numbers. Their June prediction brings them up a little bit. So the prediction from Colorado State, June forecast, named storms, 15, hurricanes, 7, major hurricanes, 3. Now, if I'm looking at the long-term averages, that 15 is just over the average. The average is 14.4. The average of major hurricanes is 7.2. So the prediction on the number of hurricanes is actually a smidget below. And then the major hurricanes, the long-term average is 3.2. Prediction at 3. So we kind of have almost a pure definition of what an average season was. There's very little difference between what the long-term averages is and what is being predicted. Okay. Now, note, obviously, season gets very interesting The first tropical system that was regarded by the National Hurricane Center for this season actually happened in January. Okay, and then we have Arlene developing in the Gulf of Mexico and doing all kind of scary things and what have you. But at the end of the day, it dissipated and did not cause us any trouble. So we will now continue on and wait for the next system to form.
Thank you, Mr. John. Onisha, communication. Is this information being passed out to the community regarding the preparations, the forecasts, and what is your feedback from the community? Are they accepting it? Are they getting enough information? In your experience, is the information that is being put out reaching the audiences that they should reach? And what are their feedback?
Yeah, so, the team has been doing a good job at the start of the season talking about the forecast, what's expected. I kind of wanted to go back a little bit to what John was talking about too, in terms of, a lot of, I like to call them amateur. I'm sure there's a specific title for them, John, in terms of people on YouTube giving out weather. One of the things that we've been kind of really tackling and wanting to share with the community and continue to share with the community is official weather sources for the Cayman Islands. Because it's extremely important that as you're talking about getting ready for the season, as something approaches, that, we all know that the population's curious. We get information from a lot of different places. We're not saying that you won't do that or shouldn't do that, but that you trust the information that's coming from official sources. So I just kind of wanted to go back to that. We know people are in those areas and they're listening. We're actually going to be pushing out content throughout the rest of the season that's specifically about getting ready. Some of the messages that I think most people tend to not think about is that, the makeup of our population. So those of us who've been through this a couple of times, we feel quite comfortable to know what we need to do. But there are many, many people on island who call this home, who've never been through a very strong storm or don't know how to prepare. So we spend a lot of time explaining the things that you should have in your kit. We have robust websites. There's lots of social media. There'll be a number of other pieces that are printed that are sent out throughout the season. We also work with various departments to get that information to individuals who may be vulnerable or get information slightly more traditional. So there's a multifaceted way that we continue to tell the public how to be prepared. One of the simple messages that we'll be pushing very strong this year is have a radio. We know it's not something that people tend to have anymore. We do everything on our phones or on our computer, but in the midst of a storm, you want to save batteries and you still need to get that information. And we know radio works. So there's some, we have key messages, what to have in your hurricane kit, how to stay prepared. But then we're particularly focused on those individuals who may not understand what preparation means just because they haven't experienced it before. So you'll see us spending a lot of time in areas where we feel new residents may actually be getting information as well.
Okay, very good.
And then I know Danny would be remiss if I didn't mention NEANS. We continue to tell individuals do sign up for the emergency alert system. It's a way to get information. So during, we would use that system, not necessarily, we would not use it for preparation, but we definitely use it for the alert phases. So it's something that you should have. And the site for all of this information will be Cayman Prepared. So we continue to support our friends in hazard management. That's the main website for information about preparing for hazards in the Cayman Islands. In the event of a threat, you will see that site change very quickly to giving you all information you need, all in the same space, live updates, as well as contact information. And the public is familiar with that website, so we feel strongly like that's the right avenue for people to continue to look at. It's caymanprepared.ky.
Yes. Before I go to Danny, as a owner of a media house, I just want to know that we have a responsibility to make sure that we get the right information at the right time. Sometimes we get tempted to get clickbait, so we get activity on our websites. And I understand the business model for that as well. But we have to take responsibility responsibility. We have to act responsible, especially in these disasters,
Yeah.
because we can make it worse by putting the wrong information out at the wrong time. And
One
so,
of
as a
the
media owner, I'm
yeah.
going to take responsibility and I'm going to set the example and say, guys, we need to do the right thing. We need to know the source and stick with the source
Yes.
and depend on the source and stop making up our own stories to try and get clicks, and which happens. And I'm honest with it. So, so as media, we're going to take our responsibility seriously.
And to that point, our team is always available to the media. And you guys know that we continue to ensure you have
Yes.
access directly to us. So, even if it's a matter of you're feeling very pressured about information, you can come directly to us so we can give you as much as possible. No, of course, we're going to be accurate, but we're here for the media as well. Like, I think everybody needs to realize that it's not a closed off type of situation. We work in partnership with you.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Danny, hazard management. How do you manage hazards, especially in hurricane season? Yes, we're thinking about hurricanes right now, but you might have an earthquake. These things happen. You might have another
Yeah.
disaster. How do you cope? Do you have an assistant that will take over for the hurricane season, or you're still in charge? You still have the groups coming together. How do you manage this?
Okay, so we have a saying here at Hazard Management that teamwork makes the dream work, right? So I think, it's a massive collaboration. Yes, Hazard Management are the coordinating body of the structure, and we do this day in, day out, no matter what it is. And I know back in the day, people used to say to me, what do you do for the other 6 months of the year when you haven't got hurricanes? And I'm like, we are multi-hazard. So any hazard that happens in Cayman, we are pretty much involved. Even the other day with the explosion, there's so many different aspects of it. Migration, Cuban migration, we've been involved heavily with that over the last year and a half or so. So there's lots of things that go on behind the scenes that no one sees, be it exercises, trainings, shelters. I mean, we have 19 shelters across the islands, and hazard management is responsible for all those shelters. Relief supplies. We have containers full of relief supplies. Even the emergency field hospital from COVID belongs to NEAC. Oh, beautiful list. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ralph. So there's a lot that goes on behind managing hazards. But again, going back to it, it is about teamwork. We have to work together. We have to make sure we work well with our colleagues, because there's one thing, when we can, in normal days, blue skies like today, or grayish skies today, you can get on with your job. But unless we have those great relationships, it really does go a bit south during an emergency, because you're exhausted, you may not slept for a number of hours, you're just on the go. So I think those kind of relationships, and I know, Anisha and John, we're all joined at the hip during any emergency, and we do have a great relationship. So I think it's those relationships across the whole national emergency structure. And it's not just the Emergency Operations Centre. We have the executive, which is the cabinet and the Commissioner of Police, and obviously is chaired by the Premier and the Governor. We have the policy group, which is deputies and so forth, chief officers, and chaired by the Deputy Governor. And then, of course, we have the council. So there's 4 different groups there that we have to help coordination of through hazard management. But those relationships are really very solid. And we're also very keen to make sure that mental health is very much part of that. So mental health has been incorporated into the structure as about 3 years ago. Ironically, just before COVID, we worked very, very closely with Dipna Carter, and who's HSA psychiatric nurse, and she's been a massive valuable asset, because not only does she make decisions with the mental health hat on, but also she kind of gives us a nod when we're not making much sense. If we need that support ourselves, because I think none of us are superheroes, and we all need that support. And I think it's that, that those kind of friendships or relationships that can say, okay, I think it's time you took a break and you need to go, because you need time out for, even if it's 10 minutes, just to breathe and just have a bit of mental health check-in with yourself. But just go back to what Anisha was talking about in regards to, communications. There's so much that goes on at this time of year, but also throughout the year. But, we're in schools the whole time doing school drills. In March, we did a significant number of emergency drills in schools for earthquakes and tsunamis. I know for this month, we've been in the DIY shops across the island every weekend to talk about people's elevation and where they'd shelter, and you know, obviously downloading the Needs app. So a lot of that community outreach. In service clubs, we do a lot of work in, you know, going to Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, and so forth, making sure that everyone there's, you know, ready to go and prepared for whatever it is. And again, this next couple of weeks, we've been doing, and the last couple of weeks, a lot of work with elderly people. So you're talking about the more vulnerable people, obviously, elderly people, caretakers of the elderly. So there's about, I think there's about 8 to 10 presentations with the elderly. One's happening tonight, actually. And that's very much in collaboration with the Department of Children and Family Services. So there's a lot going on. But talking about the targeting and the messaging, I mean, we have to make sure that stuff, when we talk about hurricane season, it's not boring. The last thing we want is the same old messaging every year that everyone just rolls their eyes and go, oh God, not you guys again, please, you know, give us a break. So we're trying to make our messaging, again, with the help of the whole comms team, very dynamic and very sort of like fresh and funky. And every year it's got, how do we palette this? How's it stomachable again this year? Slightly different changes on the wording. And one of the great things, again, work that we did with, was led by the comms team, was a survey this year about hurricane messaging. And again, a lot of that's been targeting. What we're doing now is as a result of the feedback we got there. So we are always listening to the public as to what, you know, how they're hearing it and if they're listening to it. And again, how we can make our services better. We always want that feedback.
Okay, thank you. Very well. Before I go to Mr. John for this next question, how do the superheroes deal with their family lives in a crisis?
I won't lie to you.
Danny, you go first.
I won't lie to you. But I will say, when we had the earthquake in 2020, my stepdaughter called me up and she's like, have you forgotten about me? Because it was after hours. I think it was at 4 o'clock. And I'm like, now we have a no lying policy in our house. So I'm like, well, I have to be frank. I said, my headspace is in my job. And I don't want to, I relied on her teachers to make sure that she was safe. Yes. But it's often a really difficult balance. And unfortunately, often the family have to take the back seat when it comes to emergencies. But the more prepared they are and ready to go, and we make sure that's happening throughout the whole year and that they're self-sufficient and they get on with it, the better. And I think it's just so important. But unfortunately, the job is a job, and this is kind of what we signed up for when we signed up for it.
Anisha,
it takes a village. That's all I say. Our son, the dog, is very used to their family members just showing up and say, "Hey, you're coming with us." In our household, we have 2 superheroes, so the dog and the son's usually being taken care of by someone else. So I'd say it's definitely the village. But to Danny's point, you know, it's what we sign up for. It is exciting. It makes the job rewarding as well. So it's not something that, you know, I'm whining about. But it takes a village, and I will always say that people need to have strong support in whatever role they're in, but definitely in this one, you need that.
Thank you. Mr. John, how do you manage? You're in there 24/7, sometimes 36 hours. How do you manage family life?
Well, I have 2 families. I have my blood family. I got my national weather service family, and they got my back. I really haven't produced a weather forecast for the Cayman Islands since about 2014. And I've got a fantastic team behind me. It's headed up by my chief meteorologist, Mr. Kerry Powery. And if there's somebody that wears a Superman cape, it is Mr. Powery. He has all of my respect in the world. And yet he's not the only one. Regretfully this year, as of the end of June, change will be coming to the National Weather Service in that the individual that I have worked with the longest in my career will be retiring, and that's Mr. Avalon Porter. So we will be wishing him, I don't think he's going to quite leave. He's going to probably come back or something. But, you know, it's a sign of the changing times. In fact, one of the mistakes I made this year is I didn't go out to A.L. Thompson's to buy myself some rope to tie myself down for this year. Because, there's a whole lot going on in the weather service, and you know, getting the family dealt with is very important. I remember when Hurricane Ivan came, I was blessed in the sense that the NEOC was really the fire department. And the fire department is where my older brother worked.
Yes.
And my wife and my kids had gone up to Bordentown to ride out the hurricane. And they had an evacuation, and guess what? They all ended up down there at the Georgetown Fire Station with me. And
Yes.
that was
Okay.
certainly a load off my shoulder that my family could be there with me. And I mean, regardless of during the storm, I still don't have time to spend with them. But, you know, it is what it is. So,
Yes.
I have to admit,
and-
during any hurricane, John, I think I become your work wife. And I know I'm much bossier to John than our Kathy is. So I think he's always
It's true.
happy at the all clear. Not so much the all clear, but the fact that I'm no longer bossing him
Yeah.
around.
Well, I've heard the passion and the commitment. I want to thank you all for what you do and the sacrifices that you've made. And I think the country is a better place with individuals such as yourself. Mr. John, next question. I have a concern about complacency. We get all ready for a hurricane or storm. It doesn't happen. The next time around, people become complacent. Is that something that you're concerned about as well?
Always. Amazingly enough, I started my career in the mid 1980s. And the top thing on our plate at that time was the fact that we had not been hit by a major storm for a while. And so we were very concerned about complacency, about people not taking things, taking the threat very seriously. And I dare say, since we've become a National Weather Service and hazards management is formed and what have you, I've seen some storms that I've gone through, and Foster's has basically had to, I don't want to say kick them out the door, okay? But they have people, residents of the country, going into Foster's when tropical storm force or winds are hitting, okay? And if you want to define complacency, that's how you define it. Because the reality of the situation is that you don't know if those heavy thunder showers might hit, and you might not be able to drive safely back to your home. You might be just taking into consideration just the storm force winds. What about places like South Sound, where the sea came across the road in a number of our recent storms? Okay. Did your plan to get back home, might it have gone through that region? Okay. The gully in Savannah. Okay. We had an incident. It's with Hurricane Mitch, and Hurricane Mitch didn't come here, but it was 200 miles away and cost us about $14 million worth of damage. But one of the things that was very, very, very significant, and people need to listen to this very carefully, and that is Hurricane Mitch activated the gully. Okay. And it's more than just the road flooding. It's the water flowing like a river. Okay. And there was an incident that I remembered when Hurricane Mitch was threatening the area. And that was, there was a very small car carrying a family crossed by Domino's Pizza where the gully comes out. And the force of the moving water was pushing the car into the trench on the side of the road. And the police and the fire department had to come there and rescue them. Okay? These things you need to take into consideration. You cannot wait until the last minute. It is not advisable. Okay? During the storm, one of the things I preached in terms of some of our meetings is, if you're deciding to go in a shelter, you make sure that you're in that shelter before those tropical storm force winds hit. All right? When Ivan was here, we had people crying out to the NEOC, come and save us. And the emergency people at the fire department If they now go out to save you, they endanger their lives. Okay? You need to be in shelters. Those decisions need to be made before the storm, not when the storm is hitting. All right? And of course, because we have things like rapid development, you should always be thinking this is a major storm. Always. I don't want to say I don't care what the National Weather Service says, because I'm preaching to you to listen to me. But if we say it's a tropical wave, a tropical depression, or a tropical storm, you might go like, oh, that's weak. Well, what did Grace teach us? Grace taught us that what? Don't take a tropical storm for granted. Okay? So we need to respect nature, and we need to act soon, and we need to not be complacent that we are going to cause other people to endanger their lives to correct your mistake.
Yeah. And your points are very, very well taken, and I encourage everyone to take this those warnings very seriously, because we never know. Well, folks, it's been a real pleasure for me to be here. I wish I could be here for another 45 minutes, but maybe we can have a part two to talk about a lot more of these topics. I think is very important. So if you can give me your final words, each of you, and what your wishes for this hurricane season will be. Starting with you, Anisha.
Thanks for having us, Ralph. This is a great conversation. It's always good to talk about these topics, and with my friends from Hazard Management and John over at National Weather Service. So thank you for the opportunity. From our side of communications, I really want to urge people to tune into official sources, absolutely, and continue to prepare for the season. There's lots of messaging, and people do add information in the absence of information. So being able to go back to check to where the official news is most important. So I just want to leave that as a tidbit, that always go to, whether it's caymanprepared.ky. We'll also have messages on gov.ky. Radio Cayman is our official partner when it comes to hurricane season. And we encourage our media partners to stay connected to us so we can ensure we're sharing accurate and timely information. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're most welcome. Danny.
I agree. I mean, again, things been said today, making sure you know what your hazard at your home is. So your elevation of your home, if you're on the coast, know what your risks are, because again, you can't wait to the last minute to be running to a shelter. As John says, you have to be there. It's first come, first serve. So at the end of the day, that we only have 8% of shelter capacity in Grand Cayman. We're working with a lot of the private companies, but still at this point, public shelters only house 8%. So you need to be there early. You need to be bunkered down. You need to have your supplies. You need to know what to take to a shelter, and also have your hurricane supplies at home. There's nothing worse than scrambling at the supermarket, 24 hours beforehand, because you just don't need that stress. Make sure the kids are involved in the plan. Make sure that the animals are involved in the plan. Make sure you're looking out for your neighbors and the vulnerable people around you. It's just so critical. People around you may need more help than you do. So make sure you're accounting that into your time management before a storm. As Anisha says, there's some great resources on our website, caymanprepared.ky. We also have Facebook and social media, Twitter and Instagram. So there's a lot of information coming out there, but we're really pleading with the public, just be ready for the season. And don't take anything for granted. Don't be complacent. And just, again, we're here to help. So anything you want from hazard management, planning wise, we're very much here to help, and go to any service clubs or schools or whatever it is. Just call us up and invite us in, and we can tailor it to your own specific needs. But thank you, Ralph, and thank you all your listeners.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. John, any final words?
Well, I'd like to, there are two things that I want to just touch on real quick. Number one, let's big up our superwoman there, Danny Coleman, and HMCI, and the fantastic job that they've done over there, and the level of enthusiasm that they've got for their work. Yeah. Cayman has a very solid hurricane plan, okay? And you've got a very dedicated set of disaster managers that really have invested a lot in there. That plan takes into consideration just about every aspect of life. From animals to medicine to all kinds of things. So the plan is there to help everybody, and just don't be a problem to the plan. Okay, things like going in shelters early, protecting your house, and taking care of things. You know, these are on you, but the disaster managers have done their job. Okay, whether it's issuing warnings or all of the public awareness and everything else that we do. Okay. The second part is that I know we're talking about an average season, and over the last number of years, we've been having some that have been blowing the season totals away. We've been setting numerous records from way back in 2005 and what have you. Always remember, it only takes one. Okay. Don't look at the forecast and go, well, we're gonna have an average season, or we're gonna have below an average season. We got El Nino, so we're safe. No. Only takes one. The season might give you one Category 5 hurricane, and then the Hurricane Center will tell me, hey, John, you had an average season. But that Category 5 hurricane came to the Cayman Islands. God forbid.
Mhm.
And from our point of view, we would never consider that an average season.
Thank you very much, John. I really appreciate you. Well, folks, I really appreciate all of you coming on today and highlighting these important topics and educating me. I've learned so much. I'm going to go back to my study book and get ready for the hurricane season. I hope to have you back again sometime, maybe in about a month or two, when we see some activity, or maybe not, but it's always about being prepared. Thank you very much. I want to wish you a very good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Cayman Conversations as we seek to elevate the level of media conversations with our special guests from our walk of life. Remember to like, share, and follow Caymanian Times social media pages. Don't forget to pick up your copy of our Wednesday and Friday newspapers at locations across the islands. Cayman Conversations is a production of the Caymanian Times newspaper. Have a great evening, and remember to drive safely on our roads. Goodbye.
Hold my hand tonight. I'm so in love with you. Make me feel alright. I'm so in love with you. Time goes on and seasons they change. One thing remains the same. I'm so in love with you. Sometimes it's hard to give of yourself. It's not what you want, it's what you get. Love the one you're with, you'll see it will fit. Tell me love, I'm more for what you need. Hold my hand tonight. I'm so in love with you. Make me feel alright. I'm so in love with you. Time goes on and seasons they change. One thing remains the same. I'm so in love with you. Sometimes it's hard to give of yourself. Sometimes it's hard to give. It's not what you want, it's what you get. It's what you get. It's what you get. It's what you get. Love the one you with, you'll see it will fit. It's what you get every time. so in love with you. Well, oh, hey, I'm so in love with you. I'm so in love with you. Teach them science and biology. Give them all a chance. How can one youth stand still and another dance? All the world deserves to smile for a while. All the world deserves to smile for a while, yeah. We're looking for love, but is there hope? This world is a place that can be so cold. There is one suggestion I'd like to propose, yeah. I'd like to rule the world for a day. 'Cause if I did, there'd be love and peace and no more fighting. I'd like to rule the world for a day. Every month we feed, there'd be no more greed and we'd all do the right thing. 'Cause if I did, everything would be okay. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Let's change some way somehow. Change some way somehow. The future is right now. The future is right now. I think I just figured it out. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'd like to rule the world for a day. 'Cause if I did, there'd be love and peace and no more fighting. I'd like to rule the world for a day. Every month we feed, there'd be no more greed and we'd all do the right thing. 'Cause if I did, everything would be okay. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. 'Cause if I did, everything would be okay. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
Muncie boat in the sound, boy, Muncie boat in the sound. When you talk about blue swab head all around. Muncie boat in the sound, boy, Muncie boat in the sound. When you talk about blue swab head all around. Muncie boat in the sound, boy, Muncie boat in the sound. When you talk about blue swab head all around. Lambert said to Bertie,
Boy, give me a soldier head.
Bertie said to Lambert,
Boy, all the scores is dead. Muncie,
Muncie boat in the sound, boy, Muncie boat in the sound.
Muncie,
When you talk about blue swab head all around.
Muncie boat in the sound, boy.
Muncie boat in the sound. When you talk about blue swab head all around.
Well, 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 well. Yesterday I was broke. Today I got paper beyond your dreams. That's gone up in smoke, and everything ain't what it seemed. Real comeback story. Come back, come back, come back. Real comeback story. Yesterday I was womanless. Today you checking out my beauty queen. Who job place I say no man taste. I believe that for real. Real comeback story. Come back, come back, come back. Real comeback story. Yesterday I was walking the block. Today you checking out my chariot. And some wanting what I've got. You put nothing in this pot. Real comeback story. Come back, come back, come back. Real comeback story. Yesterday I was broke. Today I got paper beyond your dreams. That's gone up in smoke, and everything ain't what it seems. Real comeback story. Real comeback story. Real comeback story. I wanna love you more. A man looks to his woman, says I don't know what you see in me. You make me feel this way. Many years go by, we live, we laugh, we cry. She said, from the start you stole my heart. I wanna love you more and more. And don't you know I wanna love you more and more. Friends in a car, one says he's going far to make a better way. The other he exclaimed, I wish I felt the same. No matter where you go, I want you to know that I wanna love you more and more. And don't you know I wanna love you more and more and more. And don't you know, out there on the streets, strangers we will meet. We all have different views to show, but if we join our heads and hands to make a master plan, see the colors make a beautiful rainbow. Oh yeah, oh. Oh yeah, oh. What in the world have we come to? Whom this life should we run to? We all know the answer. Where's this gift of forgiving? Look at the life that we live in. I want you to know that I wanna love you more and more. And don't you know I wanna love you more and more and more. And don't you know, though we come from different sides, living different lives, ooh, that's okay. It's still the same old sun who shines on everyone every day. Yeah. Oh, I wanna love you more and more. And don't you know I wanna love you more and more and more. And don't you know yeah, I wanna love you more and more. And don't you know I wanna love you more and more and more. And don't you know I wanna love you more and more and more. Ooh, yeah. I wanna love you more and more and more. And don't you know I wanna love you more and more. Ooh, yeah. I wanna love you more and more and more. Don't you know I wanna love you more and more and more. I wanna love you more. A man looks to his woman, says I don't know what you see in me.